Oh, what's going on, GameLeaper? This is the Jizz, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the win rates that have changed the most since 12.3 hit the Rift, and there were a lot of buffs and nerfs to a lot of champions, so we're going to go through these and explain to you why these have changed, and perhaps why you should play these champions or not play them. And just before we do get into this countdown, make sure if you haven't already to check out the GameLeap website in the description and comment section, because we have challenger players and coaches uploading up to 20 videos a week for your benefit. That's to help you improve and become the best player you can possibly be on the Rift, so get that exclusive access by signing up, and let's get into the video. So first of all, we're going to talk about the champions who have been buffed in 12.3, and there are 3 of these champions, and all of these have improved in terms of their win rate. So first of all, we have Lilia, and her sleep duration in her ultimate was increased. This means that when she hits level 6, she's more of a threat on the map, and she's a bit more deadly in those team fights, because if you can land your sleep onto multiple enemy champions, they're going to be locked down for a little bit longer, allowing your teammates to come in and clean house. And this has seen Lilia's win rate in the jungle go up 0.68%, so now in 12.3 it is above 50%, and it's definitely worth playing her again. But a champion who's probably even more worth playing in 12.3 is a top laner, and the top laner who got buffed in 12.3 was Quinn. So your W is giving you more attack speed in the early game, and your ultimate is also dealing more damage based off your AD. Now this is really good, especially if you're going lethality Quinn, because the damage you deal with your ultimate and a Q max is pretty insane. But if you do want to go more crit based, attack speed based Quinn with the W max first, well, this is just good because it's going to profit from the attack speed buff in 12.3, and this has seen Quinn's win rate go up over 2% in just the last few days. So if you want to pick a lane bully in the top lane, Quinn is definitely a good shout. But beating both of these champions in terms of win rate increase this patch, this is Ahri, who got completely revamped for 12.3, and since the changes have came in, her win rate has gone up over 2.2%. So even though you're really squishy, so your base armor went down, how can it be that your win rate has improved so much? Well, first of all, it's just all the offensive power Riot gave you. Not only do you get a recharge from your Spirit Rush, but your Charm, to be honest, is just more effective, and you're also getting a little more damage on your Q. And even though you're no longer really an assassin, you're more of a control mage type champion, these buffs are without a doubt good for Ahri, and this is why she has a super strong win rate at the moment. I just hope Riot don't overreact to this and nerf her into the ground. Now speaking of nerfs, we have 10 champions who got nerfed in 12.3, and we are now here to talk about their win rates and how they have changed in solo queue over the last few days. Now first of all, we have to talk about Twisted Fate, who has been hit super hard by the changes to his E's attack speed and also the base damage to his Q, and these have seen his win rate drop over 4.5% down to 43% across all ranks. This is an insane change for TF, because to be honest, even in solo queue, especially in lower elos, he's not really the strongest champion because he's extremely hard to make work and actually master. So this is a real low blow for TF, and despite teleport being the way it is now and your ultimate boasting even more power because of this, for the most part this champion is just not cut for solo queue unless you are a real Twisted Fate master and probably in high elo. Now another champion who isn't really that happy about the 12.3 changes, this is a Mumu, and his win rate has dropped over 3%, so not as bad as Twisted Fate, but it is certainly getting there. And the reason for this decrease is because Amumu's armor growth went down, and also his base armor went down as well at later ranks. This means this champion is just squishier, and also they capped Amumu's tantrum passive, so it's capped at 50% now instead of 100%. This is certainly meaningful, and this is why the Sad Mummy's win rate has decreased, but it's still sitting at around 50-51%, so it's still definitely worth playing it. Now the next champion we have to talk about won't be as sad as Amumu, but still, for Caitlyn in solo queue, she's a bit like Twisted Fate. She's very good in higher elos and in pro play, but when it comes to the general solo queue, she's a hard champion to make work, because it's like you have to win lane and dominate the game and snowball, because you're one of the strongest lane bullies. But because of the nerfs that came in 12.3, so your attack damage growth is down, your attack damage base is also down at later ranks, and your Q is dealing less damage to targets after the first hit. This means that for Caitlyn, one-shotting caster minions is never really a thing with your Q, and it just means you're scaling throughout a game because of the base stats. This is also just worse off, and this has resulted in her win rate dropping over 2% to around 47.5% across the board. Now a bit similar to Caitlyn and Twisted Fate, Corki, who has been dominating pro play ever since that Luden's Tempest build became really popular, he has also been targeted this patch by Rito, and as a result of the nerfs, his win rate has dropped by over 1.5%. So the nerfs that came into your package, so the fact you get your first package at 10 minutes instead of 8 minutes, which remember is when Rift Herald spawns, so you get 2 minutes afterwards. This means that those Rift Herald fights you just 1v9 at because your package, these are less common. And also your package restock, this is every 5 minutes, not 4 minutes. So realistically, you're not going to have your package for every Drake because of this change, and it's hit Corki pretty hard. But this obviously means that during the mid to late game in those team fights, you're going to be less of an impact just because you won't have your package as often. But another champion in the bot lane who has been targeted in 12.3, this is Nami, and Nami's win rate has dropped over 1% this patch to around 50-50.5 overall, which still isn't really that bad, but these changes certainly have not been good for Nami. So what Riot have done, they've actually given you more movement speed from your passive, which now decays over time, but they've actually nerfed your ease on hit damage, which is important because you or your allied champion with the Tide Caller's Blessing is just going to deal less damage. And it's kind of surprising maybe because this is the only thing that has been hit for Nami, but you can see how significant this is. It really draws back on some of the damage you and your bot laner are going to do to the enemy bot lane, and hence the drop in win rate here. Now next up we have to talk about another mid laner who has been picked and banned a lot in pro play, but to be honest in solo queue she's probably better than playing Twisted Fate because as LeBlanc, as an AP assassin, you can snowball and 1v9 games a lot easier. But still, the nerfs to your W's damage have impacted LeBlanc pretty big. Her win rate has dropped around 1%, so her win rate overall is just under 47%. This is nothing really special, so of course you can still pick her, but in terms of your wave clear and just your damage output in 12.3, these are obviously down. Just like Akshan's win rate, who is the next champion we have to talk about, and the nerfs coming into Akshan for 12.3, so to your passive, the movement speed, and the 3-shot damage, these have seen his win rate go down very close to LeBlanc's, just under 1%, so his win rate overall, unlike LeBlanc, is over 50%. And Akshan, to be honest, despite these nerfs, he's still Akshan. He still has so much going for him in his kit in terms of his mobility, roaming potential because of his W, and of course his strong early laning phase, so it's still the case if you can get an early kill on this champion, you're probably going to win that game. But for the 3 champions who are unaffected most by the nerfs that came into 12.3, these all reside in the bot lane. So first of all, we have Senna, and her win rate overall has dropped by barely anything, and the reason for this is because Riot have nerfed AD carry Senna. So if you're playing her as an ADC, you can see right here, her win rate as a bot laner has gone down almost 3% because the soul drop rate, the percentage, is down to just under 3%. This means that you're not going to stack your miss rates and your passive as much, so you're not going to get the bonuses from these. But if you're playing Senna as a support, nothing has really changed, which is kind of a good thing. Now the other support that's been targeted in 12.3, this is Brand, and a bit like Senna, his win rate hasn't really changed all that much. So what Riot did to Brand, they gave you some quality of life changes on your passive and also your ultimate. So it's not like they're straight up damage buffs or AP ratio buffs, just quality of life changes, so your pyroclasm is going to bounce to enemies rather than on yourself, so hopefully it's more reliable in dealing damage, and you're also going to get the mana refund when you kill an enemy that was not already affected by your Ablaze passive. But funnily enough, the nerf champion who has actually improved in terms of win rate, this is how busted she is, this is Zeri as an AD carry, with her win rate going up close to 2.5% despite the nerfs this patch. So what Riot have done, they reduced your base movement speed because the movement speed you can stack is kind of ridiculous, so lowering this kind of makes sense. But what they've also done here, they've reduced your fully charged basic attack damage based on the target's maximum HP, and this is really targeted in the mid to late game because in the early game it's exactly the same. But it can now critically strike, which is a nice thing. But the real reason why Zeri's win rate has improved is because your main mythic Trinity Force, this has actually been buffed this patch, so you're getting 100 more HP, which is really useful for a squishy champion, and even though the 3-fold strike damage is down, you still do easily enough. Let's not forget that Zeri is the newest champion on the Rift, and Riot want to sell those skins, so they're not going to make her completely useless, and she is far from it. And this can obviously be seen in her win rate going up by a lot despite getting nerfed, so it's now above 50%, so there's no reason to stop playing Zeri this patch. And those were the win rates affected most, guys, by the changes in 12.3. If you did enjoy the video and you enjoy us informing you on the best champions and keeping you up to date with League of Legends and how it's changing, let us know by leaving a like down below. And until tomorrow's daily Season 12 upload, this has been the Jizz.